This is something that has become, I mean, again, I posted about this and I got 93 comments on my Facebook page. This is something that has gotten some traction. I don't think it's just like a handful of people who listen to one podcaster. It's like people would like to see this. They would like to see the left flex its muscle and get something visible. And this is something that's become an issue. People dislike Pelosi. They like the idea of like forcing her to do this. And I was listening to that interview AOC did on Intercepted, and she's talking about things that make sense. She's talking about we got to get rid of PAYGO and there's all kinds of other things that need to be done. And we can do those too. But I think this is the problem with like, this is a problem. This is like a liberal tendency is that people want to get in the weeds and they want to say, oh yeah, well, we actually need to do this and we need to do that. And like, maybe it's true, but you also have to like build a movement. And Bernie lost the primary. AOC got shut out of a chair position on a committee in the House. We're just racking up all these losses on the left. This is something like highly visible, and it'll give people a sense of power. It give people a sense of, well, we did this, we demanded it, and it happened. AOC listened to us. And that's really important. If people feel like they're not being listened to and they can't get what they want, and there's no point in even trying, like they're going to give up and the movement's going to die. I think that there probably was some value in like Republicans for their movement. I think there was some value for Republicans, their movement holding all those votes because it got people engaged. It made people feel like, okay, well, they're doing they're listening to us. And that's like very important. I mean, especially for the left, that's why people get involved in politics is because they feel like they can have power and they're being listened to.
So I think what you just brought up in terms of PAYGO is probably even a more ripe target for an exchange with a Pelosi vote than Medicare for All, because it is like a procedural rule Pelosi put in place, right, as Speaker of the House, totally unprompted, not from pressure from Republicans or anything like that, because that is what she believes and what she thinks, which is totally absurd. For those who don't know, I mean, I think our audience is probably already political junkies, but just to give a little bit of background here, PAYGO is this, it's not an app or whatever the fuck sounds like one. It's this rule that Nancy Pelosi put in that like whatever new program or a law you pass that creates some kind of action that requires resources, you have to figure out the funding in the bill. You have to either levy a tax to pay for it or find a cut somewhere else where in some other program where those funds can then go to this thing. Basically stops any bill, including Medicare for All, in its tracks. It just flies in the face of the way the United States operates in a budgetary manner. Like, we're not a household with a balance sheet in a traditional sense. We are a large country that has the world's reserve currency and can print its own money. A lot of what we choose to spend our money on is a matter of political will, not economic feasibility.
I'll point out that military spending is never held to this, standard.
Exactly.
There's always as much military, and they don't have a problem with it passing. I mean, whatever the Pentagon asks for.
$1 trillion for the F-35 plane.
Yeah. So I think that's there are a lot of people who understand this, who the arguments around PAYGO, and the way I see it, it's the left can ask for multiple things here. They can and they should. I think it's like a good opportunity. So
I think PAYGO is good because I think outside of people like you and me, people don't know that PAYGO is there. Ready, like a guillotine ready to fall on any of the priorities that we want to see. So in making the demand on PAYGO, I think it would get into the broader public consciousness of like, well, what is PAYGO? Wait, Nancy.
I don't know if it's ever going to be sexy enough to get like much coverage on like CNN. I mean, there will be people who will be reported on in some places and people who are into that kind of thing will read about it. And for a lot of other people, it will seem like, inside baseball. So I think that's something good to ask for. I think you need a combination of that and some like highly visible like victories, like something that will get everyone's like attention and say, oh, well, they forced Pelosi to do this, or maybe it's like they ultimately like force Pelosi out of the speakership and
if she had any sense of responsibility, she would have resigned by now.
Well, it's no, she doesn't care. And it's Democrats. It's just a big club of like narcissists who never want to be held accountable and want to get up and like make their speeches in the House. And I worry like AOC is getting sucked into that. Like she's getting caught up in this inside baseball stuff. Like I worry she's taking too much advice from Bernie, because Bernie, you have to remember, Bernie came into the House, I think it was late 80s, early 90s. And for a long time, he was seen as like very marginal. You know, there's video of him giving speeches before empty House floors. And finally, the narrative is he decided to start getting along with people better. And he was able to get amendments in the bills and some kind of like small things through the back door. I worry that like AOC is going that route, and she doesn't need to. Like she's not early 90s Bernie Sanders. It's like people know about her. She has this celebrity stature. She has this large Twitter following, and she can really use that. She can go beyond politics as normal in the way that people hoped Obama would do, right? Because he had this massive following in 2008, and people hoped he would hold rallies and use his email list and like really leverage that.
Yeah, organizing for America.
Power. Yeah. People hoped he would leverage that activist power. I don't see AOC doing that. It's like she can like, you know,
that's true. Yes.
She can tweet.
That much I agree. Yeah.
She can like tweet something and say everyone should call Pelosi about this, and like her phone would be ringing off the hook for like days. And it's, I mean, or she could hold rallies. There's all kinds of things she could do. I feel like she's getting sucked into this inside baseball, and she's like, well, we got to focus on these little things. What's missing on the left is a sense of like narrative building and movement building, because I think this is a fundamental difference between conservatives and liberals. And a lot of self-proclaimed socialists are kind of just like passively accepting this kind of liberal framing. The kind of liberal sense is that like, well, they're the smart ones, which isn't hard to be smarter than the Republicans, but they're like, oh, we're the smart ones, and we have to look at what really needs to be done here behind the scenes, and it's not sexy, but we're going to fall on our sword and do these like things that don't get much attention because they're the right things. And no, it's like they should do something every once in a while that plays into people's like sort of libidinal like want, and the same that Republicans do all the time. But it's just the way that these parties are. It's like, well, the Democrats are the party of noble self-sacrifice. They're the party of like noble self-sacrifice, but they're comfortable with their position as critics of the system, and they keep getting to be critics, and they give their little West Wing type speeches, and they're comfortable with that, but they don't know how to actually like appeal to people on a base level in the way that Republicans do. We talked about this before, like in an emotional way.